So, when we're discussing the types of hypothesis, there's obviously some overlap, and some of them are technically subsets of hypothesis. For example, the directional or non directional hypothesis relate to the causal hypothesis and the sort of prediction that we expect to have. Simple and complex relate to the variables in a hypothesis. So that could relate to any, really. The null and alternative hypothesis relate to the relationship between variables. So the directional and non-directional hypotheses are alternative hypotheses, and the null is where there's no significant relationship between those variables. The statistical hypothesis doesn't necessarily get mentioned within the realm of science because that is all brought into the causal hypothesis and how that causal hypothesis works. The associative hypothesis is essentially looking for an overlap between the two variables. It's not necessarily as firm in any way, shape, or form. But those correlations can help us find perhaps some links that we could then throw into a causal paradigm, or perhaps indicate certain areas that we need to look into. And at other times, they're just silly correlations. But with all of those types of hypothesis, we can say that they sort of fit the paradigm of having those variables and could fit into an alternative and null because they are falsifiable and so on and so forth. That said, though, in science, when someone mentions a hypothesis, it's almost guaranteed they are speaking of the causal hypothesis.